Yep, perfect.
To save battery.
Okay.
I'm gonna set it right here.
All right. All righty, let's get started. You guys are going to do take 2 in here with me, huh? Awesome. I'm going to start with a different story. So, thanks for being here. And hopefully what we can do during this time is some Q&A and help do some personal assessment and give you some resources for reflection and be able to make this topic feel more meaningful to you for right now. But I'm going to start with a story of when my husband and I first moved to San Francisco, we arrived in San Francisco, and I didn't feel this huge need right away for friends, because I had good friends who had gone through a divorce with me, and even though they lived long distance, I was like, I don't need new local friends in San Francisco. I have really, really good friends, and I was kind of feeling this thing around I don't want to go start all over with people, and just wanted those close friends. And so my husband and I were out on a weekend morning going for a walk, and I still remember it almost like it's like a movie scene in my head where we were going for a walk, and he decided he wanted to stop in at a coffee shop and get a cup of coffee. And if you can't tell by looking at me, I'm not the most patient person in the world. And so I was standing on the sidewalk. After about 2 minutes, I'm trying to figure out what is taking him so long in there. And so I'm looking through the window, trying to see him on the other side at the counter to kind of assess how much longer I needed to be patient. And as I was standing on the sidewalk and looking for him at the counter, my eyes fell on a table of 4 or 5 women who were sitting there. And remind you, I can't hear them because there's a glass between us, but I could see them, and there was a movie soundtrack that started playing in the background. And I watched these women as you could just feel the connection. You could just see them all make eye contact and lean in and nod their heads, and then almost on cue, they all went, and then they're like, yes, yes, and then he did what? Oh my goodness, and you just saw their hands and the attentiveness, and they were just so paying attention. And I suddenly had gone from being completely fine with just a few long distance friends to all of a sudden, in that moment, feeling like a puppy dog at the pound, wanting to be adopted. I wanted to be with those women. I wanted to feel loved. I wanted to pop right in there and be like, hey, can I join you? And I mean, if you've ever been out with your friends, you probably wouldn't want some random stranger coming up and just pulling up a chair and being like, trust me, you would want me as your friend. I am a good friend. Here's my friendship resume. Here's some referrals. I am your new 6th person. You are so lucky I'm here. We can't do it that way, can we? And so I remember just standing there on the sidewalk, all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, I wouldn't have said I was lonely. Looking at that, I was lonely. I was like, I don't want to call my friend and talk to her on the phone. I want a group of women I can laugh with. I don't want to just wait and talk to somebody for the big things and I have to have cancer before they come visit me. I want to go shopping with somebody this weekend. All of a sudden in this moment, I was like, I want that. I want to sit with a group of friends. I want to laugh. I want to feel seen. I want to feel connected. And it didn't mean that I didn't have great friends. It meant that I didn't have that experience right now in my life. And that is so important for us to realize, because I could have gone out and called any number of people who had gone through all kinds of things with me. When I was drawing the triangle in the first session, I had friends up and down that triangle. I had friends who were up there. But I realized I didn't want to just have friends I was updating. I wanted friends I was making memories with. And that's a really big difference. And so what we're going to do during our time here together is I'm going to help teach you the 5 circles of friend in order to help you start thinking in your own mind about what kinds of relationships you might be craving at any different times in your life. And so I'm going to do a whiteboard here that I can draw on and share, because I love being able to draw, even though my handwriting is not that fun. Sometimes I just get tired of PowerPoint, so let's do it this way. All right, so I'm going to sit down here, and I'm going to draw this. And I am going to give you a handout at the end of the time, so you don't need to worry about taking copious notes, but you'll want to write down a few things that might be helpful here. So first of all, let's draw 5 circles for the 5 different categories of friends that we might have through the course of our lives. And I'm going to go through all 5 briefly and talk about where each of us might be hungry for friends, which circle. Because here's the truth of when we're lonely for friends, it's not that we have no friends. I had friends. We're lonely for a certain category of friends, but most of us don't have the vocabulary or the language to actually start being able to better identify what experience we're lonely for. So circle 1 is where all friendships start. We can wish, like I did, standing on that sidewalk, that I could go in, plop myself down, and be like, I am your new Circle 5 friend. We are going to be best friends for life. But it never works that way. Every friendship starts at the beginning with a circle 1. Circle 1, I just use the word contact friends. These are friends that we have contact with. Think about in your life, these are the friends that you might walk into a church and you go, these are my friends. I know these people. You don't know everybody, but there's certain people you gravitate to, certain people that you are friendly with, certain people that you know their names. You might talk to them for 5-10 minutes. In different settings, it would be the other parents at your kid's school that you're friendly with and when you're dropping the kids off, or the other people in a book club, or other people that you work with. And so they're people that, in the most casual sense of the word, you would say, they're my friend. I know, I have a friend who does that, and it's not somebody that you ever bump in. You only see them when you bump into them. These aren't friends you're calling, you're not confiding in them, you're not making time for them, but something in your life, they're the people who are in a certain silo with you, and you have contact with them, and they are the most casual of all relationships. Some of the people in that circle will move deeper into circle 2, and I call those common friends. We now have something that's bringing us deeper together with these people. And so now they're circle 1 friends. I'm going to stick to some of the illustrations I started with. They're circle 1 friends if we met them at church and we're friendly with them. They become circle 2 friends. Maybe we join a small group at the church or a volunteer program at the church, or maybe our families get together and go to lunch after church. And so we now have something deeper that's bringing us together. So now we actually feel quite close to these people. In circle 1, maybe we work with them at a job. They become circle 2 when we would say, that's like one of my best friends at that job. We lunch together, or we sit next to each other, or we always make sure we catch up and talk for a tiny bit every single day. So it's not just bumping into each other, but we're actually intentionally going deeper with the people over here in circle 2. Circle 2 friends, we have something in common, and it's like we can have pretty decent consistency and positivity and vulnerability with them, but they stay on the left side in circle 1 or 2. I just kind of call these left side friends. They stay over on the left side of our circles as long as our friendship more or less happens in the silo which we have in common. In the container of church, in the container of neighborhood, in the container of high school friends, in the container of the job. This often happens where we'll have couple friends, and it will be the 2 guys were friends in college, and so we get together, but we're only getting together because the 2 guys are getting together. The women aren't getting together on their own, right? And so it's a container friendship as long as the thing that's bringing you together keeps bringing you together. But I have so many people calling me, I've been in this work for 12 or 13 years now, who have good friendships in circle 2 and then get their feelings so hurt when that silo changes. So, for example, they change jobs and they say to me, well, I thought they were my best friend. I mean, we saw each other every single day and we shared everything with each other. But then I've been gone from that job for 6 months and they haven't called me. We're not doing anything. I guess the friendship didn't mean as much to them as it did to me. I guess it was a fake friendship. And we have really hurt feelings and really hard words for that. And I always have to say they were amazing friends for you, and I wouldn't question the friendship, but the silo changed. You stepped out of the silo. And the only way your friendship knew how to function was both of you getting paid to show up at the same place. And so circle 2 friends we have this one thing in common, and where our friendship is based on us both showing up in that silo. We are getting together because we are married. And so this has happened many times too. A lot of women will come to me, or husbands often also too, where a group of friends, of big couples and families would get together, and then they go through a divorce, and they'll say, well, now they're not even inviting me anymore, and I don't even feel like I know them. I feel like I've been ousted. And I go, did you ever do anything with just the guys outside of that time? Or did you ever do anything with just the women outside of that time? And they'll go, no, it was always based on us coming together. Well, you stepped out of the silo of marriage or family. So it makes sense to me that you're not going to keep being invited to that, because that's what you all had in common. But if you want to build those relationships with the other women or with the other men, what can you do to build a different pattern with those people? And so this really matters to so many relationships. This point is really big, and so I'm kind of hitting it. But when we evaluate and measure friendships, we are seeing that we replace half our close friends every 7 years. Half our close friends every 7 years. Close friends. So you think about if you were to name the 3 to 5 people that you confide in, the people that you feel closest to right now, the people that you practice the most consistency, positivity, and vulnerability with, chances are high that 1 or 2 of those people are not the same people you would have said 7 years ago. You think back where you were 7 years ago, and chances are high that 1 or 2 of those people are different. And that's not because you don't love them anymore, but it's because the silo changed. You moved. You changed jobs. Your kids no longer go to the same school. That group that you were part of is no longer meeting. Whatever the thing that brought you two together is no longer bringing you two together. And so a lot of relationships end right here at Circle 2 because one of us steps out of the silo that brought us together. Does that make sense? All right, so if we want some of those friendships to make it past the 7 years, so to speak, then we want to move them over to the right side of our relationships here. I'm going to come back to the middle circle in just a second, but I'm going to jump over to the right side. And of the right side, I just call this circle community friends. So now I'm picturing that we have this one friend from work. We may have met at work, but now I want to glue another part of our lives together, and so we're bringing them out of that silo and doing life with them outside of that silo. And now there's a couple people I love at church, but I don't only want my relationship to happen at church, and so I'm inviting them to my home, or we're meeting them and we're going camping as families, or we're doing something together. I'm pulling them out of that silo and gluing another part of our life together. Now our kids may not play on the same volleyball team anymore, and maybe that's where our friendship built, was in the stadium or in the fan, but now that we no longer have that. And so wouldn't that be crazy to invite them over just for pizza without us having a volleyball game to bring us together? So what would that look like to do another setting, to bring another context together? And that's when they start becoming Circle 4 friends, is when we pull them out of silos and put them into our community. I picture like a circle around me, and I'm like, I want some of these friendships to last beyond those silos, those containers. And so I'm going to intentionally start inviting and changing the consistency of these relationships, so changing the pattern of what we do together and where we do it and how often we do it, so that we have another way of being together, so that when we're no longer attending the same church, when we no longer live in the same neighborhood, when we no longer work at the same job, when our kids hate each other, we still like each other and we're still getting together. And that takes incredible intention to start bringing them here. And really magical things happen in Circle 4. Because now not only can one of those containers change, like, yeah, we met at work, but neither of us work there anymore, but we're still friends. Like, that can start happening in Circle 4. But the other thing that starts happening is our Circle 4 friends are meeting each other because we've pulled them out of the silo. And so my best friend from here is meeting my best friend from here. And when my best friend is coming to visit me from out of town, I want her to meet my best friend who's local. And I want my communities to know each other. And so we're starting to meet each other's kids. We're meeting each other's spouses. We're like connecting in a way that matters. And so suddenly it's almost like a web. A web is happening, a net is happening of our relationships. And it doesn't matter if they're best friends. We don't need to be one little group where all of us are best friends. What we need, though, is a net underneath us where there is some weaving that has happened, where we do believe that something can change our lives, but we are still going to be friends. We still have managed that. And that's a big shift to go from Circle 2 to Circle 4. Research shows that many of us don't have very many people over here on the right side, but most of us would be happy with 5 to 7 friends in Circle 4. And then Circle 5 is what I would just kind of call like the deepest, closest priority, confidential people in our lives. So I call them our committed relationships. These are our best friends. These are our go-to people. And so these are the people that we're calling them. We are calling them and saying, you will never believe what just happened. I need to talk to somebody. I need you. These are the people that we have the highest level of consistency, positivity, and vulnerability with. The way we move people from this is increasing that P, that C, and that V together. And so hopefully over here in Circle 5, hopefully we can be incredibly vulnerable. And we can be vulnerable along the way with all these different people in different settings. So we're vulnerable in those settings, but we're vulnerable in a way with Circle 2 friends in that setting that's different than somebody in Circle 5 where they've gone through all kinds of life with us. And they've known us from all kinds of different settings. And they've seen us beyond one context. And so they know a lot more of our lives when we get over here and get over to the right side of here. And then Circle 3, I'm going to come back, and I just kind of picture them like holding the middle, like holding the heart. Circle 3 people used to be Circle 4s and 5s in our lives. They used to be the people that were our best friends, but usually because of a move, some big life change, we don't see them as often as we used to see them. And so our consistency has decreased. And so they used to be over here, but we now maybe only talk to them once every 6 months, maybe once a year. They're the people that we know we could call. We knew them back then. We used to be so close. We still feel vulnerable. In fact, people use the expression, I can just pick up right where I left off with her. Or I just know that he would be there for me. But notice that languaging. We trust the relationship, so there's enough vulnerability in history there. But notice the languaging. We said, we can pick up where we left off. There's a left off part, right? Or we say, I know he would be there for me. There's a would be there, but he's not here, right? There's languaging that these are people who we know we can trust for the big things. But they're often the people that we talk ourselves out of doing consistency with because we'll say, oh, I should call so-and-so. Oh, it would take too long. I can't do that. I don't have time for that right now. It takes too long to catch them up, we say. Because we know we left off, and it's like suddenly we realize they haven't heard all this context and this history. And so we know we can call them for the big things, and that is not nothing. It matters. Having that Circle 3, having our heart being held by people who are confirmed in our lives, people who we know are tested and true and tried, that is not nothing. But it also explains why some of us might not feel totally supported by them completely because they don't know what's going on right now, this weekend, how we're feeling today, how this job is going, what's going on with our kid this month. And so we know that when we see them next, we could maybe update them. But we know there's a big difference between updating dear friends and feeling supported through the crisis. And you can only feel supported if you have high consistency, if you're in each other's life enough to know what's going on and you're hearing and updating and being in it and showing up for each other. And so hopefully we have those relationships over here in Circle 5 that can do that for us. And so when we look at these 5 different circles, I'm going to give you a worksheet that I hope that you'll take home and reflect on and ask some questions around. Most relationships, science is showing us that we can have 150 relationships in these 5 circles. Our brains, they can measure our brains and actually say that we can keep about 151 or 152 relationships, meaning we can remember enough personal things and keep those ties going with about 150 people. The vast majority of them will be on the left side, right? We're going to have way more circles and way more casual acquaintances over here on the left side. And most of us need a couple of relationships over here on the right side. But obviously, high level of consistency, positivity, and vulnerability, we can't do with that many people. And so most of us are going to want to aim for 2 to 3 people here in Circle 5. Research is currently showing that half of us claim to have 0 people in that circle, and half of us only have 1 person in that circle. So most of us need several more relationships in that circle. And most of us feel happiest if we can get 5 to 7 people here. But the bulk of the majority of the relationships are going to be over there on the left side. So what I want to do with some of our time here is make sure that we understand how this can inform some of our loneliness when we feel it, because I want all of us to get better at feeling the loneliness, and I want us to be able to say, that's interesting, why am I lonely? Because I have good friends. I was sitting on that sidewalk saying, why am I lonely? I've got great friends I could call. But I was craving a certain kind of relationship, and I want you to be able to have language for that. So here's some of the most common experiences of loneliness. Some of us are going to look at these 5 circles, and we are going to realize that we have a lot of relationships on the left side. We have a lot of relationships in Circle 1 and 2, and we're going to realize, a lot of extroverts realize, a lot of women are responsible. We find that we are responsible for keeping in touch with not only our friends and family, our husband's family and friends, our kids' family and friends. So most of us who are lonely is because we're trying to keep in touch with a whole bunch of people and keep all those ties going for everybody. And we might realize that we actually need to prioritize a few people and build up circle 4 and 5. And so for us, our loneliness, our invitation is for deeper friends. We need to prioritize a few. What we need to do, if that's you, is look at your relationships and say, who are the 3 to 5 people? Like, fit their names on a Post-it note and say, these are the people I will say yes to. These are the people I will make most consistent. I will say no to other people in order to say yes to these people. 6 months from now, I want to be closer to these people. I am going to increase my consistency, my positivity, and my vulnerability with these 3 to 5 names. I want to feel closer to them down the road. So for some of us, we look at this and we are going to say, it's like a funnel. We're going to say, I need to move some of my circle 1 and 2 friends over. And so our invitation is going to be, who do I know in circles 2 and 1? Who do I like? Who do I gravitate to that I could invite out of that circle to do something and to bond with them and to practice building more relationship with them intentionally, so that when one of us leaves that container, we aren't suddenly shocked by having no relationship and no way of spending time together. Does that one make sense? All right, some of us are going to look at this, and we might have 1 really close friend or 2 really close friends. We might have that circle 5 or circle 4 friends, and it might be like a sister or somebody we've known forever, and we might text them all the time. We might feel like we have that person, but we actually don't feel connected in our community, in our life, in our different ways. We realize we need to build up circles 1 and 2. A lot of people, this happens, like especially those of us who might be introvert or shy. We kind of have our person and we just kind of cling to them. And unfortunately, that person can't come to every single function with us all the time, right? And they can't feel every single need we have. And so we need to say, okay, I do want to attend this church. How do I build a couple relationships here? That they don't have to be best friends with me, but I want some circle 2 friends here, that when I come here, I feel like I belong. So I need to build up some circle 2 friends. Or at my job, I don't need to be best friends with them. I've got my best friend maybe, but I do want to come to work and be excited and feel connected to some of the people I work with. So I need to have some circle 1 and 2 friends here. Or yes, I want to be able to have a few parents at my kids' school that I actually have play dates with and actually build a relationship and can do the parent thing and can have those conversations and can bring our families together at those times. So yes, I don't need them to be best friends. I don't need to hold them to standards that they need to like hear my heart on every single subject, but I want to build up some circle 1 and 2 friends at school. And so for some of us, our invitation is going to be to kind of open up the funnel and say, do I need to meet new people? Circle 1. Or do I know enough people, but I need to go deeper with some of those people in those contexts? Circle 2. And so for some of us, our call to answer our loneliness will be that we need to build more friends or new friends. Another common area of loneliness is a lot of us need some more, let's use the word, I was using the word repairing friendships earlier. That's fine. We can stick with repairing relationships. For some of us, we have found that our relationships are never getting to 4s and 5s because every time we disappoint each other, we walk away from the relationship. Every time they disappoint us, we give up on them. We call them toxic. We go, I don't need this drama. I want better friends. And we talk ourselves out of doing the work that actually builds those deeper friendships. And so a lot of us are really needing to look at this and to say, I can't just keep all my relationships surface. I actually need to figure out how to fix some of my friendships. Maybe there's a relationship that was a circle 5 and now it's in circle 3, but there's something that's not being spoken of, that I can speak of that and like actually name that and repair that, and we can potentially go back to circle 5. Or maybe there's a relationship there that's I'm about to lose and I need to protect a relationship. So maybe a better way of repairing relationships is saying for some of us, we need to do a better job of protecting our relationships, of practicing speaking up when we have needs, of practicing listening and saying, is there anything I can do to better support you, my friend? These are the skills that some of us, when we're lonely, it's because we haven't learned how to go through conflict with people. And so we never will feel safe with them if we don't know how to go through conflict. You think about anybody that you have felt really safe with. It is not because they never disappointed you. It's because they disappointed you and you made it through that. Every family member, every marriage, every romantic relationship, I can pretty much guarantee you, you don't feel safe with them because you've never not because you've never not fought. You feel safe with them because you know that you can fight and they're still going to be there for you. But in our friendships, we don't have a culture of talking about that. In our dating, we do this. Like, we might not like it. None of us love conflict. But in our dating, we do this. In our dating, we will eventually say, okay, you know what? When you do that, it's leaving me feeling this way. Or I guess I just need a little bit more from you in this area. And we will have these conversations. We might not like it, but in our dating, we do this negotiating. We do the sharing. But in our friendships, we just get mad if they don't know how to read our minds and be everything. And I've watched this. I've been on the receiving end of so many of us feeling hurt because they didn't know how to serve us or love us or give to us in that way. And so we need to do a better job of speaking up and practicing the things that will protect our relationships and help them stay over on the far right side. One of my favorite quotes, I actually opened my second book, Frientimacy. That is, if anybody's wanting to do more of these deeper relationships or these protecting relationships, Frientimacy is the right book for you. That's about how to deepen our relationships. I opened that book with a quote that says, "None of us want to be friends with people who disappoint us, and yet there are no other kind." It's a hard thing to feel, So for some of us, this will be the area that if we're seeing a cycle of our relationships and they're just kind of cycling through, we want to stop the revolving door and figure out how to actually hold these relationships and go deeper with them. And then let's just name one more common area of loneliness. This is for people who have a hunger for specific friends. So this would be somebody who you might have great circle 5 friends, but you want circle 2 friends of a specific kind. And so let me tell a story about a group of my girlfriends. We were meeting every Tuesday night in a girls group, and one of my girlfriends was the first to get pregnant in this particular group of friends. And she had the baby, and we were all excited. We threw a baby shower for her. We love the baby, and yet she was talking about her nipples being chapped, and we were all like blank stares, like we have no idea how to help you with this. And I said to her, "Why don't you join a mom's group?" And she was like, "Oh, no, I want you guys to be my friends." And I was like, "We are your friends, and you can join a mom's group, right?" And so here she is, getting her needs met over here on Tuesday night girls group, and I'm saying to her, go join a group that's for moms, like for new moms. Like they know things that we don't know. They can hold things that we can't do. We can empathize, but we can't empathize. Like, you can go get mom friends, right? And she said, this isn't a betrayal. These are 2 different needs in our lives. These are 2 different types of friends you need. And so she went and joined a mom's group, and 6 months later I said, "How's the mom's group going?" Oh, all they do is talk about babies. I mean, just baby. They don't even know that I'm a human outside of being a mom. Like, they don't even know what I do for a living. Like, we don't, all it is babies. And we had this great conversation because she was kind of mad at them for not acting like circle 5 friends. And she had been kind of disappointed in us for not acting like circle 2 friends. And so one of the most powerful things we can do is realize there's needs in our lives that not the goal isn't to get everybody to circle 5. The goal is to have enough people in every circle that your life is filled. When I became an author and an entrepreneur, I looked at my group of girlfriends and I was like, they can't help me with this. They don't know anything about writing a book. But I don't want to be mad at them, and I don't need to be like, I need new friends. I'm like moving on. I'm growing. I'm doing new things. I want friends who know my heart, have gone through life, who love me and know all of me. And I went and joined an authors group because I wanted to have conversations with other authors about how does this publishing process work and how do you do this? And so that served a purpose. For some of you, there might be something in your life happening right now. You might be diagnosed with something that makes you say, I want other people who know that experience. You might be going through a divorce and say, I want to be with other people who know that experience. You might have found a church you love and you want to have people who you can talk about that faith with. But that does not mean you have to get rid of circle 5 friends to have circle 2 friends. Our goal is for all of us to look at these 5 circles and to ask, which one am I craving right now? If I were lonely right now, if there was hunger for me to fill up one of these circles, which one might I fill up? Another area of loneliness is some people have a habit of just getting rid of everybody in a former life. They move and they just start over. They move and they just start over. And so for some people, the hunger is, what would it look like for me to reconnect with circle 3 friends? What would it look like for me to have 1 or 2 friends who knew me back when, who have gone through life with me? What would it look like for me to reconnect with an old friend? And so there's a lot of different experiences of loneliness that you can see when you can start identifying which circle you most want to have more of. So I would love to break you into, like, maybe let's have the three of you and the three of you. Just for 5 minutes, sit and just introduce yourself to each other briefly, and then just each of you take 1 minute to share which of the 5 circles would you most like to pay more attention to or build up? Which of the lonelinesses would you most like to kind of fill? And just kind of have a little conversation with each of within your little triad for each of you to kind of share which one would make the biggest difference to your life or most recently in your life if you were to pay more attention to building up friends in that area. So let's break into those groups of 3 for 5 minutes, and then we can do a little bit of Q&A. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, you should make sure your second person is sharing by now. Oh, I'm good. You're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. One more minute. Make sure everyone's had a chance to share. One more minute. All right, 10 seconds. Finish your sentence. All right. Thank each other for sharing. I'm curious if in either of your groups, did all three of you answer the same way? No. All three of you picked the same one? Okay, wow, which one did you pick? More twos, okay, more specific friends, good to know. Yeah, and yours was all different? You all picked different ones? Yeah. This is what's so powerful about this for me is I often have the media call me and ask me, and they always want sound bites of like, what are like the 3 most important tips you can give for making better friendships? And I'm always like, this is not the answer they want. But I'm always like, it looks different. It depends, right? If you're somebody who needs more Circle 2 friends, the tips I would give you are entirely different than if you need more Circle 5 friends, right? And in my case, as I was walking down the streets of San Francisco, looking, which friends did I have and which ones was I missing? I had great friends that I had been really close to, but I had recently gone through a move and I wasn't talking to them all as frequently. So I probably had a lot of 3s in my life who I could call and who would be there for me. What I was craving was Circle 5, local. But I couldn't just go interview a bunch of people or plop down there and say, what I need is Circle 5, I'm going to make Circle 5. If I want Circle 5, I actually needed to look back and say, okay, is there anybody in Circle 4 I've been growing in my community who I could be more intentionally vulnerable with and start building a deeper relationship to bring them to Circle 5? In my case, no. So in my case, I needed to look back over here. I did choose, interestingly enough, I did call somebody who was a Circle 3 friend and say, you know what, I'm just realizing that I'm suddenly a little lonelier in San Francisco than I thought. Would you be willing to make a weekly phone date with me? And so she and I, for probably 10 years, talked every Wednesday at noon. And we loved it so much that year. She was like, absolutely, I'll do that. And so, but we loved it so long, we did that for 10 years. So not all my Circle 5 friends are local. She and I, we were doing life together. We are consistent. We are vulnerable. But I don't want all my Circle 5 friends being long distance, right? I wanted that experience in that cafe with a group of people who knew me. So I needed to go back and actually go meet people. Ugh. What I wanted was Circle 5. What I needed was Circle 1. I had to start the funnel. It's a very different strategy. What I want to do is just sit down with one person and be like, let's be Circle 5. What I had to do was go meet somebody and start being like, let's get to know each other. Let's figure this out. How often are we going to get together? What are we going to do? For some of you, the strategy will look totally different based on which circle you most need at this time in your life. And one of the most powerful things we can do is do this assessment on a regular basis. When I was writing my first book, Friendships Don't Just Happen, that's the book where I teach these 5 circles. It was kind of funny because I was using my friendships as examples for all of these different categories. 6 months later, anyone who knows the publishing process, it was 7 months later when they're giving me the book to edit, and I was like, that person moved away. She's not a 5 anymore. She's a 3. And I was wanting to edit it, and correct it. And they were like, it was true when you wrote it. By the time that book came out, 8 months later, I was like, this isn't true anymore. And I realized, even for me, who's so intentional on this, every 6 months, every year, things are shifting. People are moving. Life is changing, and different things happen. And so it's fun to kind of be able to get more practiced at identifying when you feel lonely. It's like being hungry and saying, what am I hungry for? Am I hungry for a snack? Am I hungry for a meal? Am I hungry for a 1? Am I hungry for a 5? Am I hungry? What am I needing? Who can I call? What does that look like? Is it a 2? Is it an experience I need? And if so, what experience is that? And if it's a 2, do I want to start it, or do I need to go join something that's already doing that? If I want to, so we have to make, and how do I get that consistency with them? So I either need to start something and start making it consistent, or I need to join something that's consistent. How do I find these people? How do I build that relationship? That strategy looks very different than some of us who might be lonely for reconnecting with 3s. That will look a very different experience. And so my prayer for all of you is that you would take this worksheet home and reflect on it, but that every single one of you would feel that loneliness and know that means you're human. That is a beautiful message to receive. It's a message telling you that you have more love to receive. It's a message telling you that you are made for more connection. It's a message saying you want to give and receive more love. And that is one of the most beautiful messages you can receive. And now what I hope is that you can then say, okay, what could that look like? And what can that strategy be that will help me connect with the people that will matter most to my life? So that's where I'm going to end, because I don't want to be delaying anybody else, but I was going to say I will do Q&A until everybody else starts coming in. So yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny. I've reached out for me, I think there's several different ways to do it. I think in some cases, a Facebook group is not a bad way to go. Like, I just have a friend who had a spinal stroke. That is a very hard experience to find other people who have had a spinal stroke. Like, you can go on Facebook and suddenly have 2,000 people who are talking spinal stroke. That's powerful. Like, if you're waiting for local people on that, it's going to be a very long time to find them. So I do think that can be a powerful way to like have that community. Absolutely. And the author group was interesting. There was like somebody that I knew of who was coming out with a book that I had heard, and I reached out to her and was just like, I heard you're working on a book. Is that true? And we didn't know each other that well. And she was like, yes. And I said, I was curious if like we could get together and talk about it. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And we got together for lunch and just kind of started sharing and bonding over that. And then I was like, this would be so great for us to do again. And she was like, actually, I know so-and-so who's also coming out with a book. Maybe we should invite her to the next one, right? And so suddenly it's kind of a more organic way where suddenly we are kind of like, okay, there's now, and then that person, now we have 4 of us and we're getting together to talk books for several months while we're doing that. That's one way to do it. When I moved to San Francisco, when I decided I wanted to meet new people, I had kind of attended a few events and met a couple people loosely. And then I ended up reaching out to 2 of them. And I basically said to them, like, I would love to start a monthly women's group. And I was wondering if the 2 of you wanted to help join it and start it with me. And they were like, yes. And so we all just I was like, but I don't know anybody else. And we said, why don't we each invite 2 people and invite them and say, let's have a group of 10 of us. We meet every month for 10 months out of the year. We'll be the 10-10 group. And it's funny, in that sense, we basically, I went to 2 people I barely knew and said, I'm starting this women's group for people who are trying to do cool things in the world, but we want to support each other, and we want to be women supporting each other. And so would you like to join? Do you want to come? We're just going to try to do this monthly thing for 10 months out of the year as 10 women supporting each other. Every single person we asked was like, yes, okay, great. So now we're meeting our first time, and it's 10 of us getting together and talking. And so I think there's ways to do it where we can do it organically. There's ways we can go join something. The goal is we want to broaden here's the goal is I don't need them to act like 5s. I don't need to judge people to be 5s. I don't need to be like, are they my best friend? Are they a parent also? Are they we don't have to hold all these other standards. We can just be like, I just need us to have this thing in common. And so it opens us up to just being like, we're just looking for other women who want to support other women in our businesses. Are you in? Okay, great. And here's the powerful thing is we know what bonds people. We know that if we consistently see each other, we encourage each other and leave each other feeling good, and we share with each other, we are going to bond. And so we don't have to sit there and worry about who we're inviting. We know what bonds people, and now we are the people who can help make that happen. And so it becomes a very powerful, empowering, hopefully, thing that you can then step into and know what does that. Does that help answer your question? Okay, I like it. Do you have a question? Yeah. Yes. It's not. Yeah, I'm in between trying to figure out what else I'm doing. But there's so many other things now. She's talking about an app. There's a bunch of apps out there that help introduce people to each other. Bumble BFF now. You can swipe through for new best friends. Yeah. There's always networking groups. There's Meetup. Meetup.com is a great website for going to different things for around activities and that sort of a thing. So yeah, and then it's amazing how many people know people, if you go to a new thing and you just even say, I'm looking to start a group with other people who have a cancer diagnosis. Does anybody know anybody? It's amazing how quickly people know and can help facilitate that too. So, all right, I'm going to turn my mic off and pass it over, but I'm happy to answer any questions for any of you after the fact, and let me give you each that worksheet I promised you. Here you go. Yes, Clubhouse is great for audio connection. Let's see. You can pass that out if any of you want. Yeah, you're so welcome.
What do we do now, Tim? Fall is here, hear the yell, back to school, ring the bell, brand new shoes, walking blues, climb the fence, books and pens. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Walk with me, Susie Lee, through the park, by the tree. Da-da-da. I need the words, the bugs we found. I come to school without a sound. Safely walk to school without a sound. Doesn't it sound like our friendship, Tim? Yeah. Here we are, no one else. Walk to school all by ourselves. Dirt is on our uniforms, chasing all the ants and worms. We clean up and now it's time to learn. We clean up and now it's time to learn. Numbers, letters, learn to spell, nouns and books, and show and tell. Playtime, we will throw the ball, back to pools and down the hall. Teacher marks our height against the wall. Teacher marks our height against the wall. And we don't notice any time pass. We don't notice anything. We sit side by side in every class. Teacher thinks that I sound funny, but she likes the way you sing. Tonight I dream while in my bed. Silly thoughts throw through my head about the bugs and alphabet. When I wake up tomorrow, I'll bet that you and I will walk together again. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
So who wants to keep sitting for a while? Man, what a way to spend a Sunday. Or, let me show you this and tell me what you think. No? Maybe. Tim, maybe. Oh, right on. Okay, thank you. Okay. So yeah, what do you see here? I beg your pardon? Someone's looking at themselves in the mirror. How many of you have ever done this? Oh, only that many? The rest of you don't even look in the mirror? Okay, so here's a question for you. When you do what this guy is doing, what's the first thing you look at? Your eyes? Okay, that's cool. I like that. Yes? Hair? Nice. Okay. Or wondering where it is? I get you. I get you. Yeah. Now, here's a little trickier question. What do you say to yourself when you look at you in the mirror? Huh? Damn, I am the handsomest guy I've ever seen on this planet. How many of you say that? Oh, right on, man. I love it. Yes, please. I age well, he says. I agree, 100%. I got to learn. I got to talk to you after this program because I want to find out your secret. Don't you get fixated once in a while when you're looking in the mirror to that part of your face that just something doesn't feel good? Oh, man, I'm getting these long things. And what am I, like a turkey now in this stage of life? I mean, oh, these wrinkles, come on. I mean, do any of you say those things? Oh, I'm so glad I'm not the only one. It's really interesting, isn't it, what we think of ourselves and what we say to ourselves when no one else is around. Here's an interesting slide. Look at that one. This is a clinical psychologist who says 85% of people worldwide, adults and adolescents, have low self-esteem. Does that shock you in any way? Or isn't that something that we would actually say, no, it does not shock me? A lot of us in this room are in this 85%. And I've been in that 85% off and on in my own experience. Isn't it interesting that we hold ourselves personally more responsible for things than we do with other people? Doesn't that sound a little bit ironic or weird? Why do we do this? We know what the consequences are to low self-esteem, right? All the metrics just go downhill. Health, suicide rates, accidents, disease, everything. The World Health Organization, interestingly enough, reports that more deaths are caused by suicide every year than homicide or war. That's an interesting one. What do we see when we look in the mirror? I have a woman that I've worked with through the years, off and on. She's gone through therapy, not from me, but through other therapists. And I would probably be accurate to say that she is one of the most low self-esteem human beings I've ever met. And she alternates back and forth between this idea of extreme self-hatred and maybe I can tolerate myself. But here's why I'm mentioning this. What's fascinating to me is that this self-hatred has actually now moved to other hatred of other people around her. And she wrote to me the other day, and she said, I am just finding myself hating people. I can't stand them. Everybody is just so mean, and they're so stupid, and I'm stupid. I mean, she just went on like this. And I began to realize, you know what? Wow. How we treat others is a mirror of how we treat ourselves, what we think about ourselves. Isn't this true? How you relate to yourself radically impacts how you're going to relate to other people. The more comfortable we are with ourselves, the more comfortable we tend to be with other people. The more we're able to trust ourselves, the more we're able to trust other people. The more value we see in ourselves, the more value we see in other people. It just sort of works that way, doesn't it? Have you found this to be true in your life? So that makes me think of a saying that many of you know. You've heard this before, right? But have you really looked at it? What is it saying? Let's repeat it together. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's one of the most powerful texts that I've ever come across in Scripture, because it shares so dramatically the relationship between our relationship with self and our relationship with others. And here's the bottom line. The most important relationship you will ever have in your entire life is your relationship with yourself. Let's think about that. Just let it sink in. The most important relationship you will ever have in your life is your relationship with yourself. And let's face it, you have to live with yourself your whole life. Unlike you don't have to live with everybody else, but you have to live with yourself. Our world of human beings is what I call an ecosystem, which means in an ecosystem, what happens to one thing happens to other things, right? There's a symbiotic relationship that takes place in our ecosystem. So think about this for a minute. Research is now showing that 4 houses down the street from you will pick up the energy you're exuding in your house, and they don't even know you, but they feel it. Research is showing it. 4 houses down the street. Talk about an ecosystem, that one really scares me. Wow. Case in point, what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, right? Are we being impacted clear on the other side of the world? Yes. I'm going to tell you about one of my best friends, and he is the most empathetic person I know in the world. And when we were on the phone just the other day, he said, Greg, I just am feeling suffering. Every part of my body is aching from the war in Ukraine. We've got one man who has an ego problem, and because of his relationship with himself, and however psychiatrists want to evaluate, that's up to them, but because of that experience of himself, we are feeling the effects of what decisions he's making clear on the other side of the world. That's what I call an ecosystem. The most important relationship you'll ever have is the relationship with yourself. So let's just think about that a little bit. I want to think about this in the context of what you've been hearing today, because this one is extremely dynamic, and sometimes it's the hardest one to deal with. How do we go about living with ourselves, loving ourselves? Is that an impossibility? What does it take? Well, let's look at a few things. One of the big emphases for me through the years has been the vitality of self-reflection. Understanding who I am as a human being, what my human design is, what are my strengths, what are some of the shadows that I may have as blind spots that I want to address. How can I become the fullest potential of my human design possible? Do you ever ask those kind of questions? If we don't stop long enough in the midst of our busyness to carve out what I call a strategic stop, then we don't have the space to ask those questions of ourselves. I did a presentation to Sutter Health physicians back in January, and I did a poll. The poll with this large group of physicians, and I said, what is keeping you from taking more time out for self-reflection? And you know what the top of the list was for them? I would have thought busy. I'm too busy. That did make the list, but it wasn't the top. Here's was the top. They came back, and the majority of them said, I'm afraid of what I'll see. These are physicians. I'm afraid of what I'll see. No wonder we don't have a lot of self-reflection in the world, because it does open up windows to us. But they're not windows that can't be addressed. They're windows that we, with the support systems that we've created around us, can actually grow from, right? That's the whole point of personal growth and personal development. So let's look at just a few things. I won't take a lot of time on all these. I don't like the word ways to self-love, but I like the word a path to self-love, because it's a journey, isn't it? Or our whole lives. We're living with ourselves our whole lives. However long you're going to live, you're going to be with yourself. That's a journey. So let's just look at a few things. Number one, your value. Where does your value come from? In our culture, our value comes from what? What? Yes. Productivity. I do a lot of work in the workplace. Productivity. We have become human doings and we're no longer human beings. And that's a big differentiation, right? Where does our value come from? If I cannot answer this question for myself, then I'm going to get lost in the weeds somewhere. Where does my value come from? Does it come from how good I am? Does it come from what status I have? Does it come from the clothes I wear? Does it come from the size of my body? Does it come from what other people say? Does it come from my job? Oh, it's got to be that. I've talked to more professionals who, when I ask them, so where does your value come from? They say, my job, man. I go, well, tell me how your value comes from your job. And so they will say a few things, and I say, so what if you lose that job? Now what? And they don't have an answer oftentimes. Their value does not come from our jobs. It doesn't come from status, position, money, power, contrary to what Putin thinks. It's not from power. How many people that are under me that I can command? No. How about this thought? What would you do? What would it feel like if I said to you, your value comes from being a human being? Period. Does that even make sense? That's a tough one, isn't it? But think about it. Let it sink in for a minute. My value comes not from what I do, but from what I am. I am a human being that has, therefore, every equal right to have in my life that anyone else would have. I am a human being. Now, if you were to move into the Christian realm, then you would bring the God factor in, and that God would say, I created you. You are you because I value you. That's a whole other way to look at it too. Same outcome. My value comes from simply being. If we don't get this one right, then the rest doesn't make sense. How well do you know yourself? I'm a big believer in self-assessments. I'm sort of a self-assessment junkie. Pretty much done a lot of them. And here's what I found doing self-assessments. Yes, they are self-assessments because you are answering the question. So are you making it turn out a certain way because you're skewing it? All this. Well, there are some very scientifically done self-assessments. And I have found that every single one has a similar theme about who I am and what my design is. Here are some that I like. That's the self-assessments. I love Clifton Strengths Finder. Any of you have heard of this? A lot of places in work are doing it. It's great because it's determining your natural preferences that your brain is wired with. Some of that comes from nurture, others of it comes from nature, but it's a great depiction of who you are and what your space is in the world and what you can contribute to the world. Very powerful. Enneagram is another one I love. Enneagram's getting a lot of PR these days in the workplace. It's a tremendous assessment because it describes in more nuanced detail. Not by any means the least, but emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is assessment. You can buy the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0 and they will give you the test and you can discover what that means to you. And the reason all of these, I'm just mentioning some of these here. Let me see if I'm still going here. Oh, I'm not supposed to be doing there. Oops. Okay. Well, I'm going to take a self-assessment right now. Greg, why can't you make this thing work? Well, sorry, Tim. Tim is our main man, isn't he? Is it? Okay, cool. Oh, thank you. Well, that's great. Okay. Thank you, Tim. And you are the man. Yeah. I'll come back to that one. Let's look at these. Self-assessments help to give you a window into who you are, and when you know who you are and what your natural self is and how that can make an impact on the world, it gives you so much more clarity and it increases the confidence level. And then the issue becomes, now my job is to align my choices with who I am so that those choices can be more in harmony with the way I've been designed. Does this make sense? And one of the things that I do all the time is repeat these self-statements based upon these assessments that say, I am. If they're not true, forget it. Don't repeat a statement that's not true about you. That's why I like basing them on some of the self-assessments, because that's a snapshot of you. I am strategic, maximizer, communication, futuristic, empathy. Those are my top 5 strengths. I am that. The reason I like the I am statement, real quickly here, is because it is a statement of being. It's a part of who it makes Greg Nelson. When I say I want to be, well, that's something I'm hoping for. But I am means this is who I am. And this is how I want to make choices then that are in alignment with who I am. All of this is leading to the point, and managing inside voices. I'll tell you one that's a big one that I find with a lot of people, and that's the inside voice of the imposter. Any of you ever had the imposter syndrome? I was in a CEO meeting, and I asked them, what do you feel when you walk into the door, the outside door of your office building? What's the first thing you feel? And this one CEO looked at me and he said, I feel absolute fear. I said, why? You're the CEO, man. What's up? And he says, because I'm afraid that they'll find me out, that I might not be as smart as they think I am. But that's the imposter syndrome. And the moment he said that, another CEO said, I have battled this every day of my professional life. And I suddenly realized I'm in a room full of human beings. What in the world? They are not God after all. Wow, what a concept. If we don't learn how to manage our voices, then you can be sure that when you go to make friendships with other people, those voices are going to come right back at you and bite you because you've never learned how to manage that internal voice. And then emotional intelligence. We know the 4 parts of emotional intelligence. Boy, I'm not doing very well on this. Mr. Tim, Which way am I supposed to hold this? There it is. Okay, now we got it. All right, here. Yeah. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management. If we do not know how Peter Drucker, one of the great management gurus of our time, said to leaders, if you don't know how to manage yourself, you can't manage other people. That's what he's talking about. This emotional intelligence where we can identify, as Shasta said this morning, with words, what we're feeling. We can identify what someone else is feeling with words, and then together we can work to manage that and regulate it in a way that brings peace and contentment. That's basic to a human relationship. I'm saying now the relationship starts here, and then it goes out here. The most important relationship you'll ever have is the relationship with yourself. So I want to describe a couple of friendships for me and how this idea of the relationship with self has entered into the creating of these relationships. These are my two best friends. The guy on your left do something big. 30 years, man, come on, that's pretty good. This is my other best friend. He's 12 years, my best friend. Lives in Oakland, California. He lives in Walla Walla, Washington. I am on the phone with both these guys every single week for at least an hour and a half each. And we were talking in our men's group about the busyness that we all have. And I just finally came to a point in my life where I said, if I don't invest in this, then what's the point? And a part of the journey for us has been a self journey. That's what I love about these guys. They want to go on a self journey with me. They want to know me, they want to know themselves, and they're willing to do this thing. Now, what's cool about these guys is that they both are so different. We're looking here at a New York Jew who grew up gay. His family cut him off. His twin moved to San Francisco. He followed his twin, went to San Francisco. His twin took his own life. His brother died. His older brother died. This guy has had more trauma than I know of a lot of people. And yet, look what he's doing. This man has gone on an inner journey in a way that very few people have been willing to do. He calls it his inside laboratory. So he hears a statement, he makes a statement, or he hears a belief, and he says, let me take it to my inside laboratory. And he sits with it. He's the king of self-reflection. And it just comes out, it bubbles out everywhere he goes. And I love him for that, because he's also been able to take me on that journey with him, and I've taken him on my journey. Paul is wholly different. He believes in self-reflection. He and I have taken a lot of assessments together, and then we talk about them in our conversations. Like, hey, what did you turn out? The Myers-Briggs, yeah. What are the 4 letters you have again? And what are your top 10 strengths? And we do all of this kind of thing together for 30 years. Here's how it started. He came up to me when I was working in Lincoln, Nebraska. He was a brand new person there in Lincoln. And he came up to me, I was pastoring the church at Union College, and he came up to me and said, Greg, listen, I've been a part of a men's group for many years in Oregon, where he was moving from. And he said, I just don't want to lose that. He said, would you be interested in coming to lunch with me and just talk about whether we could establish a accountability partnership, a prayer partnership, et cetera, et cetera. I said, yeah, that sounds good. We go to lunch, and we made a commitment. Let's try it for 3 months. We tried it for 3 months, and now 30 years later, here we are. And I will tell you that those 30 years have had a whole lot of evolution. We've gone through a lot of crisis and trauma in our own individual lives, and he has been faithful all the way to the end to me. And he has so much respect for me, and I have so much respect for him. It's remarkable. This guy came my wife and I had a spiritual community in San Francisco called Second Wind. We were trying to reach people that were not religious and so forth. And I decided to advertise a workshop on spirituality in that city. So the only person that signed up was this guy. So I felt some obligation to at least meet up with him, who comes in a turtleneck in a convertible Porsche, and he pulls up, and I'm thinking, I bet you that's this guy, man. And sure enough, and we walked down to the cafe, and we spent 3 hours visiting. I have no idea why I took that amount of time, other than I think it was just a divine appointment. And I've journeyed with him through those years, and both friendships have had challenges, but when you analyze this piece that Shasta showed us so beautifully, when you analyze all the 3 pieces, for Bruce, it was this one. He's like a high P. He wants to just pick up the phone and have our conversation anytime he wants. I'm a J, so I said, man, that's just not working for me. And we ended up having to, he felt really badly that he was having to do all the initiation. And so we talked it through and worked it out and finally found a common ground, and that consistency just soared. And with Paul, it was more here. There was a vulnerability challenge. And I knew we both wanted it, so what do we do about it? He wanted to talk about just sort of concrete things, and even though he's an NF in the Myers-Briggs, and I said, that's not what he does. So we talked about it. Was it uncomfortable? The more vulnerable he became and the more vulnerable I became, and we then finally got to this ground where we say to each other when we leave, I love you so much. I'm not the only one saying that. That's the cool part. They each say it back to me before we hang up. Bruce says, Greg, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I love you so much. And I said, Bruce, I love you too, man. Thank you for being my best friend. I'm the one, by the way, that gave the title to Bruce, best friend. About knocked him off his feet. I said, Bruce, we are best friends. He goes, no way. Are you serious? No, I can't be best friends. And I said, look at the triangle. I showed him this triangle. I said, my wife thinks that we're best friends, so I'm going to go with her. She's the expert. So I went through the whole thing, and I said, Bruce, we are up here, man. To me, that's a best friend. And he goes, I'm going to have to think about that. Guess where he went? In his inner laboratory. And he came back the next time we got together, and he said, Greg, damn, you were right. We are best friends, and he has never let me forget that. He goes, man, this is it, this is it. What I'm saying is this, friends. I'm saying that friendship like this is made better when we do friendship with this. They both go hand in hand. Relationships are the laboratory in which we learn how to live life well. But if we don't begin here and begin to see ourselves for who we are, it's going to be way harder. The most important relationship you'll ever have in your entire life is the relationship with yourself. How's that going these days? And I'm so grateful that in the end, man, I got the greatest gift of all. These 2 guys that I would die for. And they would die for me if they had to. That's what we can experience. That's the power of friendship, here and here. So keep going. We can do this. We can do it.
resources from your breakout sessions, resources from Greg and Shasta. You can find links to their books, to various articles, to websites. You can find a bunch of links to a lot of different things on our website. So make sure you check out heartandmindsummit.org. And in the meantime, Shasta, I noticed on your Friends Don't Just Happen book that there are some names on here. Are these actual people yeah? I thought so. I was like, I'll bet these are some of her girlfriends. So I was gonna see, I'm gonna randomly kind of pick a name and see if anybody in here is named this. Okay? That's what we're gonna do. So do we have a Kelly in the house? No? That's all right. Do we have a Rose? Is that Sonia? And the A got cut off. Sonia? Connie? Amy? Celeste? Monica? Vanessa? Lindsay? Or Tanya? None of those. How many of you anybody have a really close girlfriend? Name one of those. Yeah? All right. That's all it needs right there. It's yours. Would you come up and grab it for me? All right, give her a hand. Yeah. That works. Absolutely. All right. Who has to go to work soonest? Is anybody going to work tonight? Anybody have work tonight? Yeah, tonight? All right. I'm going to give you Greg's book, The Strategic Stop, okay? Taking Back Your Life in a World Obsessed with Busyness, right here. All right, there we go. That's awesome. And I got one more. This was the hardest book to find on Amazon, by the way. Your Friendsimacy book flies off the shelves, so it was the hardest one to get quickly. And so I have Shasta's Friendsimacy book, and I'm going to go with who is driven the farthest to get here today. Is there anyone over 2 hours? Okay, because that'd be a long, unless you got stuck in traffic. Anybody an hour and a half? You walked an hour and a half. Hey, that deserves a book. That deserves a book. Come on up. Yeah. Anybody gonna walk an hour and a half? That's awesome. Thanks, man. All right, you walked from Walnut. That's impressive. Yeah, you absolutely deserve that book. And finally, I wanted to see. I've got one T-shirt left. So, is there anybody else that got that? Okay, let's try this. Is there anybody that's here because of a flyer? Not a friend, but a flyer. They were given a flyer in an office, or anybody? No? How about a social media post, just out of curiosity? No? All right. So here's what I'm going to do. Okay, let's go with, we got some friends still hanging out in here, right? So who can tell me something that really just super impacted their week to come, that's willing to share? This is going to change how I'm approaching my week. Is there anybody for a T-shirt? Vulnerability for a T-shirt. That's acceptable, right? So, anybody want to say? Anybody? Hand up. You're like, I'm going to think about it. I'm thinking about it. Something that is really going to yeah, it's a deep question. This is going to change I'm going to do something this week because of something I learned today. Anybody? That's okay. Or maybe we're not on the vulnerability scale. We're not high enough yet. Okay. Awesome. I love it. And you brought a friend today. So she's going to get the T-shirt. All right. You guys, thank you so much. Go to the heartandmindsummit.org. Keep an eye out. We're going to be working on next year's theme. We choose a different theme every year. You honored us with your presence here. It's the first time we've gotten to do this in person, which is really cool. Please keep an eye on your emails. We're going to send out a survey. We'd love to hear back from you so we can keep growing and improving for next year. And have a great time. I'm going to just pray us out of here. So would you bow your heads with me? Father God, thank you so much that you are with us, that you want to be our friend. And so, God, be with us as we go, as we look at our relationships more closely, as we grow together, and as we grow in you. I pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
Okay, thanks for coming to our friend tryouts. We just have a few questions to see if you'd be a good match for us. If you could date one of our mothers, which would you date?
Have you ever been to prison?
You know that one thing you did that one time with that one person? Why did you do that?
You got any Yo Mama jokes?
Do you think Jesus was good at bowling?
I don't suppose you could teach us how to Dougie, per se, but could you teach us how to knit?
Where do babies come from? Be specific.
Sing your favorite Air Supply song.
Do you believe in corporal punishment? And what's your favorite way to see someone die?
How much time do you spend skipping when no one is looking?
So from like 1 to needy, where do you fall?
Did you lie about liking Celine Dion music back in 1995?
Do you hear voices in your head?
If I were paralyzed from the neck down, would you spoon feed me pudding? I don't think so. No.
So loud, you're saying to